Hello, and welcome to Black Screen Stories and Parables by Queen It's Intuition. Today we have a story about a very mean queen, a beautiful princess, and her seven helpers. Let's get started. Once in the midwinter, when the snowflakes were falling from the sky like feathers, a queen sat sewing at a window with an ebony frame. As she was sewing and looking at the snowflakes, she pricked her finger with a needle, and 3 drops fell on the snow. The red looked so beautiful in the white snow, she thought to herself, if only I had a child that was as white as snow, it would be beautiful. Some time later, she gave birth to a daughter who was as beautiful as snow. Her hair was black as ebony, and she decided to call her Snow White. But when she was born, the queen unfortunately passed away. A year later, a lonely king took another wife. She was equally as beautiful, but she was angry and cruel and jealous and vain. She couldn't bear the thought of anyone being more beautiful than her. She had a magic mirror, and every day when she looked into it, she said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror always answered, "Oh, you, of course, Queen. You're the fairest in all the land." That always set her mind to rest, and she knew if the mirror told the truth always. But as Snow White decided to grow, she became more and more beautiful. And the queen started to fear her, that someday this girl might be the fairest in all the land. So she dressed her in rags and forced her to live with servants and be a slave from sun up to sundown. All the while Snow White cheerfully scrubbed floors, dusted, and carried water from the well. She dreamed that some day her Prince Charming would come and carry her off to a castle in the clouds. One day she was drawing water from a well, and her friends the pigeons told her a secret. It was really a wishing well. Make a wish! Make a wish into the wishing well. You can hear an echo. Your wish will come true. Your wish will come true. Snow White spoke into the well. Well, I'm wishing for the one I love to find me some day. Before the echo could repeat the whole wish, a whole handsome prince on horseback rode up, and he saw Snow White, and he looked at her with such admiration. Snow White grew embarrassed and she ran. But the jealous queen had been watching this from her window, and she turned yellow and green with envy. Looking into the mirror, she demanded, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of us all?" The mirror took a minute. He was confused. Ah, Snow White is now the fairest of them all. The queen was in a terrible temper, and she sent for the huntsman. "You will get that child out of my sight," she said, "and you will take her into the forest and make sure she never returns." The huntsman was so saddened by these words, but he did not dare disobey the queen. So he took Snow White deep into the forest and left her there. Happily picking flowers, she knew she would be okay. Kneeling before Snow White, he said, "The queen has commanded that you stay here. Please stay here. You cannot come back to the palace. If you do, the queen will not be happy with you." The huntsman left Snow White, and then he was on his way back home. When the queen asked had he did what she asked of him, he said yes. Alone in the forest, Snow White was confused and frightened after she finished picking her flowers. Everything she saw was strange. Everything she had heard was different. So she kept running deeper and deeper and deeper into the forest until she finally saw a tiny cottage. It wasn't larger than a dollhouse. No one was home, but she was able to fit in, so she went on in. And there were seven dusty little chairs with seven dirty little dishes and seven little shirts that needed washing. And there was dirt and cobwebs everywhere. From the look of this place, it just is seven untidy children for sure, Snow White said, and she went about what she was used to doing. She started sweeping and cleaning and scrubbing and doing the laundry, just as she was always taught. However, she noticed that as she looked behind her, these woodland creatures were there. So they decided to sing and dance as she did her work. They whistled while they worked. Do 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 do. And Snow White went upstairs and she found seven little beds. Each one had a name. One was called Doc, one was called Happy, one was called Sneezy, one was called Dopey, one was called Grumpy, one was called Bashful, and one was called Sleepy. What funny names for children, said Snow White, and then she yawned. I am sleepy, and she went to sleep. It was quite dark, and the owners of the little house came home. They were dwarfs, not children, and they just went off to the mountain every day with their picks and shovels to mine their diamonds. But no sooner had their candles lighted up, they saw someone had been in their house. Our house is clean, said Grumpy. Cautiously, they tipped up the stairs. What's going on? I don't know. Well, well, is that a girl sleeping in my bed? Wow, she's pretty, said Sneezy. Bashful said, no, she's beautiful. I think she looks like an angel. And then Snow White, she woke up and she saw the seven dwarfs and she said, oh my, you're not children. You're little men. You're little people. But they were friendly and they said, well, what is your name? And why are you here? Snow White told her, the huntsman told her she had to stay in the forest and she wasn't allowed to go back home because her stepmother was a queen and she was angry with her. And I don't know. I just can't go back home. She just won't find me here if you let me stay. Will you let me stay? If you let me stay, I promise I'm going to keep your house up for you. I'll sew, I'll cook, I'll make beds, I'll wash, I'll do anything that you ask. The dwarfs whispered amongst each other and they said, well, okay, if you keep everything neat and clean, you can stay with us and you'll not want for anything. We'll take good care of you, our friend. So she stayed and she kept their house in order. In the morning, the dwarfs went off to look for diamonds. In the evenings, they came home. Dinner was always ready. Snow White was alone all day. However, she was very kindly warned by the dwarfs. Listen, please don't answer the door for strangers. Watch out for your stepmother. She is not a kind lady and full of tricks. In the meantime, the queen had been given a box and she had believed that Snow White had finally passed. However, she went to her magic mirror and she said, mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all? And the truthful answer came from the mirror immediately. It's still Snow White. The queen stamped her foot in fury. That huntsman had out-tricked her. That Snow White was still alive, and as long as she was alive, she was not the prettiest. Snow White was the prettiest, and she was jealous, and she was angry, and she was determined. At last she thought of a plan. She changed her looks. She put on makeup and a costume. She dressed herself in black rags and pretended like she was a toothless old little pretty lady. No one would even recognize her. She didn't even recognize herself. She was very pleased with her disguise. and she went straight to the cottage. Hiding behind a tree, she watched the seven dwarfs say to her again, "Remember, Snow White, don't let anyone in the house. Try not to speak to strangers." And they marched up the mountain, singing their song. Hi ho, it's off to work we go. Hi ho, hi ho, hi ho, hi ho, it's off to work we go. And no sooner were the dwarfs out of sight, the raggedy old lady showed up. She said, "May I have some water?" Snow White didn't seem to be odd, so she gave her some water. But she didn't open the door. She handed it through the window. That was a good way to do it. "Oh, thank you. Well, here's an apple for you. I know they don't grow on this side of the forge." And Snow White reached out and she ate the apple. And her friends told her, "Don't eat or take anything from strangers. Don't open the door. Don't do it." But she never had an apple before. It was so pretty. She had to taste it. So she did, and she quickly went to sleep. Ah, the queen's disguise dropped off, and she laughed and she stomped and she giggled all the way home. "I am the fairest of the land. I am the fairest of the land." She's not going to wake up from that. The dwarfs ran back home after a wonderful evening of work, but then when they saw that the queen was running out of the woods, they knew something was immediately wrong. "Oh no, oh no, oh no." They didn't know what to do. They traced after the queen and she tripped and then she fell. And they're not sure what happened after that, but she immediately disappeared. But they returned home. They were heartbroken. They knew something had happened. And sure enough, they found their beautiful Snow White asleep. So they made her bed out of crystal that they had been mining, and they let her sleep. A long time passed, and then one day a prince, the same Prince Charming who saw her by the well, heard that she was beautiful and just still resting in the forest. He wondered, was she truly the one that he had saw? The one he's been looking for ever since that day? He rode deep and deep into the woods, and he finally found the cottage. And there she was, the true beauty, his princess. And he leaned over and he gave her a kiss on the cheek. And she woke up and she was so happy. "Oh, hello, it's you." And then Snow White's dearest wish came true. Her and the prince rode off to his beautiful castle in the clouds, and they were happy forevermore.